talking about how that's more complicated than you think, though, because then their siblings already are choiced in. And how does that impact the whole family? And, they start to get attached to the kids once they're there and don't want to revoke choice, really. I mean, they're feeling like they're making some progress. So I didn't answer intentionally.
Welcome to Spedsplaining, where special education gets decoded one case at a time. I'm Stefan, a former classroom teacher and current instructional coach, and I'm joined by three brilliant minds in special education, Darcy, Anna, and Leanne. Each week, they take real stories, often from right here in Washington, and break them down into plain language. We use these stories as a launch pad to explore the wild, wonderful, and sometimes frustrating world of general and special education. Whether you're an educator, parent, advocate, or just curious about how the system really works, we've got you. Let's dive in.
Okay, this one is about a high school student with choice enrollment in a district. Leanne or Darcy, do one of you want to talk about what choice enrollment is?
Choice is when you do not go to your neighborhood or assigned school. So you can stay in district and try to go to a different school, which you have to apply for, or you can try to go to out of district, which you also have to apply for.
I think we just got a message from our local district about there's like a window that you could, right? Okay, there we go.
Yep.
And it only lasts for a year. It has to be renewed every year. I think, I don't know if that's for sure, like true everywhere, or if that's district adopted. Darcy?
I think that depends on your policy.
Okay.
Okay, so this student was qualified under EBD. Do you remember what that one is, Stefan?
Emotional behavior disorder?
Yeah, good job. So qualified under EBD with SDI only in behavior. So his behaviors included elopement, refusal to comply with teacher directions, unexpected social behavior, which they listed as inappropriate and disruptive, and verbal aggression, which included profanity and discriminatory slurs. The student's IEP and behavior plan included supports for emotional regulation, allowing breaks in a designated space in school to help manage those behaviors. They didn't have any restrictions on the frequency or duration of those breaks, so there really was a lot of autonomy for this kid. When he was in the break room, he had access to a Google Classroom so that he could stay engaged with that instructional content.
What's that?
And I thought you were like asking about the break room because I knew you wouldn't be asking about Google Classroom. So I was like, it's just a room where he doesn't have to be in class. Oh man.
Sometimes we're just full educational nerds and like everything's funny and inside jokes. And
so he was in his IEP had him in gen ed 80 to 100% of the time for his LRE. By the middle of the year, there was no evidence on progress towards his behavior goal of improving engagement and learning. But there was some documented progress towards his social emotional goal, which was on using tools for self-regulation, including properly utilizing those breaks. So even with the documented self-regulation progress, they were still seeing all of those same behaviors. There were 16 disciplinary referrals in 4 weeks. 8 in Darcy's face is like, why?
I've got some thoughts about that myself.
8 of those referrals were marked as informational purposes, so there was not official discipline with them.
Like, does that mean like we're just creating a paper trail?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess.
You said 16 referrals in 4 weeks?
Correct.
Okay. I've been taking notes. I think I might have lost. Can I recap just real quick? High school student, EBD, getting specially designed instruction in behavior. And when you said elopement, like likely to run away.
Yes.
Right? Take off. Profanity, discriminatory slurs, you said like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like refusal to do work. What's the word for that?
Work refusal.
Hey, there we go. Touche.
This listed refusal to comply.
Compliance. That's the word I was looking for too. Okay.
Well, and
Yeah, we've got some thoughts on compliance.
Okay. Me too. Oh, this could be fun. And then you said like there's emotional regulation. The idea here being like they're probably aligning those goals to like SEL stuff, like self-regulation and like self-awareness, and like potentially providing some support in that area to help him manage his own behaviors. And then, oh, sorry, go ahead.
There were two goals. One of his IEP goals was improving his engagement in learning, and the second goal was self-regulation.
Okay. And when you say gen ed 80 to 100% of the time, that means 100% of the time, right? Like this kid is probably not in like getting.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Could be 80% of the time.
That's a good point. What I just did there was
87.
remember the scene in The Office where Michael's like, he didn't prep for the presentation. He goes in, install PowerPoint, and it's like loading time 20 minutes. He's like, so this will probably take about 5 minutes. That's what I just did there. Okay. All right. Thank you.
So his last disciplinary referral right before kind of all of this went down involved the use of racial slurs, which was not the first time this school year, and making offensive gestures. So those actions led to a short-term suspension of 3 days. On the last day of the suspension, the district revoked the student's enrollment.
Like expelled him. Okay. Oh, but he was choiced into the school.
mm-hmm.
He was choiced in.
Ah.
So thoughts on that, Leanne and Darcy, from your admin's perspective?
Well, school choice has 5 reasons you can say no, right? So, and the very first one is financial hardship. And then you have the grade level or class being full, whether the programs are offered there, and then whether the student's disciplinary records or other documentation indicate a history of violence or disruptive behavior or potentially gang membership. So that's the policy for accepting the kid, but they've already accepted the child. Like the child is like, we've said, okay, you're ours, you can come. So can you reject that application when one of those things happen is the question.
I mean, obviously, the part that you need to avoid is having it appear to be completely discriminatory. So that's hard when it's a behavior related to the student's disability. But because they're a choice student, I'm not positive on that one.
The 3 days, was that the first suspension, so they hadn't got to a manifest?
That I don't know, but it didn't talk about a manifest yet.
So there's more?
It was not. Yeah. Yeah.
So then they expel them and then family files due process.
So, okay. So they were, that was not the first suspension. So the district cited in their, how do you say that word? Revocation?
Yeah. Revocation.
Okay, so the district cited in the revocation that the pattern of disruptive behaviors was adversely affecting the ability of the district to educate him, and the repeated behaviors was adversely affecting the other students, specifically calling out derogatory slurs based on race or gender. So they gave guidance to the family to enroll the student in their resident district or pursue other educational options, and informed the parents of their right to appeal the revocation with OSPA. Is that the typical process?
The revocation was not typical. I mean, that's interesting that they threw that in there. the parents.
Yeah, and I don't know, appeal the decision with OSPI. That's just filing due process. That would be their only appeal. Like OSPI doesn't get to say, you keep this kid, don't keep that kid, send that kid back home.
So, I mean, that is that was good on district though, then, right? Of being like, hey, here are your rights. Like you guys have family rights in regards to your kid's education.
Yeah. I'm going to jump into my administrator and I'm going to be like, I might try it. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but if my obligation is to keeping the kids I have safe.
Is the only no, I guess I don't know. No, let me ask this a different way. A potential issue would be is if they're revoking enrollment and it is a manifestation of his disability, that's an issue, right?
Yeah, I think if they had a manifest, they created a bigger issue for themselves. But if they didn't get to a manifest, then maybe not.
Parents are arguing that the district improperly disciplined the student, leading to removals exceeding the 10 days, which should have triggered a manifest.
Oh, okay.
However, the district argued that the use of the break room was not disciplinary. It was a supportive space, so the student was never formally removed for more than 10 days. But remember, they didn't have regulations on how frequently or how long he could use the break space. So family saying you let him out of class too often, he hit 10 days. School saying that was his choice. He didn't hit 10 days.
They probably didn't document. You might have said this. They didn't document how often he was using it.
I don't.
Well, and I believe
I think they did.
It's still an exclusion, even if the child chooses it.
I don't think that counts as exclusion because
I thought they put that in there. Let me see.
Well, maybe now. Is it in there now? Because it used to be maybe I'm thinking of isolation. If a student could willingly leave the space at any time.
Yeah, that's different.
Counted.
I'm pretty sure that they said on the last discipline training that I did that even if a student chooses to, they're missing out on their education for big chunks, and you should be paying attention to that.
To a Google Classroom in the break space. So he wasn't necessarily missing out on access.
Was he doing things? Well, I mean, engaging in Google Classroom?
Yeah. Was he passing anything?
I don't have his grades in here, you guys.
Well, can you explain that to me? Let's say there's a student that we know. I'm also going to make you guys explain EBD to me because I do not understand it at all, like just genuinely. So, but I'm thinking if you've got a student who, as part of the plan, it's built in to support them in self-regulation to give them space to go. Are you saying that technically there's a limit to how often they can use it? Because if they hit a certain threshold of time, then like we need a manifestation or something. I'm not articulating that clearly because I don't fully understand. There's something that's not sitting right in my head. Like I'm thinking of Stefan in class, and Stefan has a tendency to get really worked up and really struggles with self-regulation. And so Stefan's really good at identifying when he needs access to this room. It turns out Stefan genuinely needs this room a decent amount because there's a lot going on. And so he accesses this room. He's doing it consistently. But like if we're tracking Stefan's time in the room and it hits, let's say the number is 10 days, which I recognize would be a lot. But let's say he hits this arbitrary number, then we have to have a meeting and say like, Stefan can't use the room anymore, even though he knows he needs it and he's using it appropriately. Is that correct?
No, I don't think they would say you can't, Stefan can't use the room anymore. It's just that if you have a student opting out of their education by going to this room a good chunk of the day, how, that could impact FAPE.
Okay. That makes more
And
sense to me.
it would be something to watch, because I doubt that he was in the break space on the Google Classroom super involved in his education. I mean, maybe.
I could
But
not name
that's
one
not-
student from my middle school experience who would have done something like that. Like,
I
you
mean,
know how
but-
often they're going to the
Right.
bathroom because they don't want to be in your classroom because they genuinely need a break, but like that's their jobs to try to avoid the learning. Like that's kind of what they do, and
what's
especially
the
at high
difference?
school.
What's the difference in sitting in class not doing anything and
Physical
refusing
location,
to work
seat time. Should we have a conversation
versus-
about butts and seats?
versus going to a separate space to genuinely regulate? Because that's where he was making progress. He was making progress on self-regulation. He wasn't making progress on engagement.
Engaging.
Whether he was in class or not, he wasn't making progress on engagement.
And I think
Yeah.
rather than is this a exclusion question, is to me, I think more of it of he's making progress on his regulation. He has access to gen ed and he's not eloping, which means he's safer because he's in the building. So I think that there should have been documentation about when and how he was using that room, right? Like you would with any other kid. Like how often does he use it? What time does he use it? What class does he use it in? When does he use it the most? Like all of those things that are going to help you plan for that kid. But I don't know that I would count those as I wouldn't count those as exclusions. I would say this is part of the plan. And when the IEP team says this is being used 90% of the time in math and he's not passing math, now I'm going to get the team back together because I have a concern.
And I don't
Yeah.
and I think that's essentially what district was saying, is that those aren't exclusions. He was choosing that. It was in our plan. And I don't have in here, I'd have to look at the full case again. I don't have whether they were documenting or not. So I can't say that they weren't documenting the use of it.
Yeah, documenting it is important, but it's not discipline, obviously. They're not disciplining him and making him go to that space. But it is something to pay attention to, as probably part of his behavior intervention plan, to decrease the use of that space or increase the time in the classroom. But
Did you find if the new disciplinary laws are counting that as exclusion?
I'm not finding it really quickly, but I'm not going to even say that. I need to find it. I think maybe it was on that side by side.
So go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to keep going, but
Well, there we go. Great minds. Bringing it back to the inciting event, he got suspended for 3 days the inciting event was him using a slur we're assuming against another student, right?
slur and offensive gestures.
Okay. So and that triggered them to revoke his enrollment in their school.
In their district.
Oh, he was choicing to the district. I was thinking this was just a school within the district.
District.
Gotcha. This is in Washington?
Yes.
Okay. I guess that doesn't really matter. But I guess I would be interested to know if they can even do that, because that feels like once you've choiced in, to me, I think it should be like, you're part of our district, not like you're here conditionally. Like,
well, that's why he talked about what those regulations were for accepting choice.
Right. I'm just thinking, like, if you're accepted at a school or in a district, and the district couldn't tell a student who's like geographically supposed to be going to that school or to that district, hey, we just don't have space for you. They're gonna have to figure it out. So I guess my thinking, especially since Leanne said these things are yearly, like you've committed to this kid for the year. It seems a little gross to be like, well, you're not really a part of the district. Now, I think there's something to be said about that violent or disruptive behavior, because there's other things that we go through with students who are in our system and who are like geographically supposed to be going to that system that we, like in extreme cases. And so like if this student is making other kids feel uncomfortable, if he's using slurs and inappropriate language and gestures, like I think that isn't quite as clear cut as like the space thing, which is why I want to know a little bit more about EBD. Is that a typical manifestation of that, or?
I don't know that there's a typical manifestation for a child who's identified as EBD, and I think that's the difficult. It's one of the harder diagnoses because it does impact the child for the rest of their life, and kind of what that looks like for adult services and those sort of things. So I think I also share, like, it's making me think of if I'm in an elementary setting and I accept a kid, and part of the responsibility is the family to get the kid there, and they're an hour plus late every day. I'm going to say this is not the appropriate placement for them, right? Like, now I have concern about they'd be on time to their neighborhood school if they got on the bus. So I don't know if that's a parallel, and I'm just thinking about practice and sort of what that looks like. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and Leanne just dropped in the chat. Do you want to read that?
Yeah, classroom exclusion. This is the new proposed language, which I believe they adopted, right? Darcy?
I assume if you
these
got
were
it
the
from a WEP,
emergency
yes.
rules. Yeah.
Oh,
no,
the emergency
I got
rules have
that.
not been adopted, but they're currently in place.
Okay, so this is the rule currently in place. Classroom exclusion means the exclusion of a student from a classroom and instructional or activity area for discretionary behavioral violations. So that's what I was saying before. It's certainly not discipline, but the student's not accessing their education. So you'd still keep track of it for the purposes of the IEP, but it's not going to count into that manifestation 10 days period.
Yeah, because I don't think the classroom's excluding him. He's working on his IEP goals and opting to go somewhere with less sensory or less distractions, or just get away, just escape.
And and I would say, just as a BCBA, having implemented many a break system, it is very common to start with very few restrictions, if any, on how you're going to access your break, because you want it to be reinforcing. You want them to realize that, hey, this is going to be better than blowing out and getting sent home. And then as they're making progress, as he is, you start regulating that a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing is to address the eloping behavior, which, I mean, it sounds like they were, but he still was able to say a lot of things, and that's harder to maybe teach him to have self-regulation on.
Yeah. So parents were arguing that they improperly disciplined him by using the break system. School saying that's not discipline. Family was also claiming that the school unilaterally modified the placement by requiring the breaks to be in that specific spot, and because it was without his same typical peers, that it should be counting as a special ed setting, not a gen ed placement. So then it should impact his LRE in the IEP, and that was done without it being an IEP team decision. And then the real tipping point for a family was because the district revoked the choice status because of behavior. They felt like that was equivalent to an expulsion. District said it was not a disciplinary action, but a policy-based administrative decision due to those ongoing behavioral issues.
I'd like to hear more about how it's not a disciplinary action. That seems like shades of gray. Like, you did something that's against our school code of conduct. We removed you from the school setting, and now we've unilaterally removed you from our school system. And like, you can justify it with like these like history of, but it's literally, Darcy literally said history of discipline, violent or disruptive behavior. That seems like a disciplinary action.
My question is, why did you accept it? Why did you accept the child? It seems like maybe
We've
they
had,
didn't follow their own policy in the first place and actually take a minute and look at what the kid needed.
I feel like I hear about that happening, like
Yeah.
funding wise, we're going to accept any choice we can. And then, oh crap, this kid is really involved and now we're actually spending money to support them.
there can be some tricky ones too, where parents might have done a revocation of consent and like ended the IEP, come into your district. Maybe you don't know that there's this history. There's some trickiness with having all the information before the child starts, and then halfway through you're like, this is not a student we would have taken on choice. Especially if you have to hire staffing to keep the child safe. And the whole change of placement thing is very interesting, because the student's opting out of the classroom into a special ed space, but the IEP is still written that they should be in gen ed higher percentage. Like, I think that probably happens a decent amount, and we don't necessarily call it a change of placement. The IEP team didn't sit down and say this placement's going to change. It's just kind of the day-to-day of the child's reality.
And they looked at the district size, 5,700 kids. So not a tiny district, but not huge.
Medium size for our state.
Yeah. So what do you guys think happened?
I think revoking choice right after something like that is a poor choice. Even though it might feel very, very tempting. Poor choice. Should try and get through the rest of the year and not allow next year. I have had a district in this situation this year, and talking about how that's more complicated than you think, though, because then their siblings already are choiced in. Mm-hmm. And how does that impact the whole family? And they start to get attached to the kids once they're there and don't want to revoke choice, really. I mean, they're feeling like they're making some progress. So it's just a lot more complicated than it might seem. I didn't answer intentionally.
At least you were transparent about it. And man, yeah, if anything, it's bad optics, right?
Yeah.
I think they have to fall back on all their policies. Like, did you follow your discipline policies correctly? What is your choice policy? What is the language for losing the right to choice? I don't know how well districts spell that out in their policies. What policy number would that be, Darcy?
I looked it up. So I think, let's see if I still have it up. 3130. Oh, no, not that one. 3141. And it is laid out very clearly. Like, every year at the beginning of the year, I get calls and I go, well, is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one? Because I think you are committing to a commitment to that child for the school year. And because I think there's so many reasons that you can say we're not best suited for this situation, I am going to say that they said they had to at least finish out the year and make sure that they weren't in the middle of transfer of credits or loss of credits and something like that. And I just don't like it. It just doesn't, I don't want, that's not the message I want to send. But like I said before, I can see some principals giving it a go.
I'm in the exact same boat. I think if nothing else, I'm a big believer in, this kid didn't look like he was physically harming. It didn't sound like he was physically harming anyone. You didn't describe any sort of like violent behavior. Inappropriate, yes. Offensive, yes.
Yeah, didn't say anything about aggressive behaviors.
So in that sense, I'm thinking only because I'd want to stick with that kid all year, and see how we can support him. Because It's like, you kick a kid out of your classroom. You have lost all power to impact any kind of change. You remove a kid from the district, you no longer have the power to support and help that kid. And if he's making growth in his social emotional goals, like the self-regulation stuff, there's some hope and progress there. So I think the optimist in me wants him to have stayed at the school, wants the student to have stayed at the school. So that's what I'm going to go with. Though I'm not super confident in it.
Well,
If they followed their policy beforehand, they wouldn't be in this position.
There you go.
Almost like
we
have policies.
Policies are everything. At the end of the day, when you're making hard decisions, you can fall back on a policy. But I don't know that I'm seeing in the transfer paperwork anything for how you would revoke choice once the student's in. It's all about like beforehand, like in the application process.
Yeah, it's like sending a message that there's an axe hanging over your head the entire time. You're not even supposed to be here, Like this isn't even really your school. If that at any point can be revoked. Anna's thinking.
The whole time I've been thinking of Mean Girl.
She doesn't even go here. Yeah.
Well, and there's also I've heard this. So you have a choice student who comes in and they're not on an IEP, and then they get referred for an evaluation, and then they get an IEP, and suddenly there's all these needs but this is their first IEP, and you couldn't have known that ahead of time. This is with littles, and it would be so uncool to just go, oh, now you have an IEP, out. We can't meet the need. I mean, that's just not how this works. So I feel like, if you choice them in, they're yours. But
I really like that you described that as uncool. It would be so not cool, man. I mean, true, but seems like a major understatement.
Well, I mean, being super transparent, a lot of parents would not go and get an attorney and file due process, but it's still like, don't do it. Don't do it, not because it's illegal and you're going to get in trouble. Don't do it because it's not cool.
Not cool, man.
It does look like there are, I'm putting it in the chat. It does look like there is policy for rescinding.
You found a whack. Okay.
Yep. So if the transfer is rescinded before the end date, according to the conditions listed in the non-resident school district policy, the resident school district reassumes responsibility for the student. So if the district had a policy about like, we can rescind choice, then if they were to have, it just looks like they had to have it as written in a policy.
Okay. Policies. That's our takeaway.
So,
but we don't even.
So what
does the district have a policy?
So the ALJ found that while the student was removed for disciplinary reasons to the break space, it was consistent with the IEP and the behavior plan, which all had agreed upon. So it did not constitute an improper change in placement and therefore did not meet the legal threshold to require a manifestation. I do have a question about that though, because I've seen in IEPs, if you get to like such and such intensity, you go home, right? Or like we've been in this aggressive state for 2 hours, we call home. Don't you still document that as a disciplinary action?
Yes, because you're excluding them.
But here,
that's not what was happening here.
They said that they did find in the documentation that he was removed for disciplinary reasons to the break space. Like, yes, he's been using it as a break space and you pulled him from class for it.
But maybe not the 10 days because the judge didn't say you had to have the manifest. Maybe they only did it 4 days.
Good point. So, and that all the times when he chose to go to the break space, he could have returned to class at any time, which would not be cited as disciplinary removals. Utilizing the break space the way it was written did not meet the definition of educational placement from IDEA because he was not often required to stay in that space. Parents then argued that the time after revocation of enrollment should have counted as disciplinary removal. So like they revoked after the 3 days. So that time afterwards should have counted, which met 10 days. But since the student was not enrolled in any district, the ALJ said there was no educational placement to be removed from. So they sided with the district, saying that they followed the proper avenues for appealing the revocation of choice, which the parents did not pursue. So fully in favor of the district.
Dang.
Mm.
Well, this one was a downer.
Well, I guess what I don't understand is that's 2 in a row that's fully in favor of the district, but very different vibes.
Yes.
And now Anna's going to make fun of me later for not keeping the podcast evergreen because I just said 2 in a row. But I guess what I don't understand, I think I missed a part. You said since the student wasn't enrolled in any district.
Yeah, so after they revoked the student's choice, they said, hey, you're supposed to go to your resident district and re-enroll, and gave that district a heads up, like, hey, we revoked choice, so they should be coming to re-enroll. Family didn't re-enroll anywhere. So the student was at this point just not enrolled anywhere. And family is saying, you guys should have counted this also as disciplinary time. And school saying
No.
Because you had the option to put him into school. Okay.
And
I was like, I was missing that part. First, I was like, you can't just like kick a kid out of your school and be like, all right, not our problem because you're not enrolled anywhere. They had an option. They had somewhere else they were supposed to go and they didn't do that. Okay.
I think it's interesting. And again, clearly this was found to be in their policy, but that they revoked after the 3-day or like at the end of the 3-day and not earlier. Because now it's like, hey, you're supposed to come back to school tomorrow, but psych, you're not welcome here anymore. Go to your neighborhood school.
Well, if you think about the logistics of that, though, how long the day they get suspended, you're debriefing, doing what? People are starting to ask questions now. Why is he even here? Now I got to check my policy. Now I got to call the attorney. Can I really do that? Right? Like, I mean, it took them some time to make sure that they were going to come out on the right side.
Do we have any idea why the student was choiced into this system in the first place? Can we speculate? Like, what would be just not excited about their home district?
Oh, it could be parent works in that town, and so they bring kid to school when they're in town. It could be that. There could be so many reasons why you chose.
That makes sense.
It could be that he has a really difficult disability to manage and he has burned through the other system.
Yeah, EBD is not a light category.
I read the thing.
Not typically a kid you take on choice, by the way. Like, I hate to say that, but it's not a learning disability. It's a behavioral disability. The chances of meeting this discipline threshold where you're not going to maintain choice, and the discipline threshold for, one of our local school districts is posing a risk of health and safety to other students or staff and being engaged in violent or disruptive behavior, being suspended or expelled. I would think that this went under the suspended or expelled piece, but EBD students under the category of EBD being suspended or expelled is not like a far-fetched thing.
And this student, what I was checking to see, like, oh, maybe he's been identified since choice. No, he was identified and qualified under EBD in 7th grade, and now he's in high school and started choicing into the district in 8th grade. So
now I'm back to Darcy's thing. They didn't do their homework, maybe. If a student gets hurt by the student that you choiced in as a superintendent, I don't think you're going to want to stand on that.
Right. Well, and so I think that's part of why I asked. It wasn't any sort of like violent behavior. Not that, you know what, no, as a straight white male, it's pretty easy for me to say, it's just words. And I know that's not actually it. Like, well,
I think about, we're raising 2 Black boys. And if there was some kid from out of district, disability or not, that was racially profiling my kid, I would raise hell.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. Yeah. From a parent's perspective, if I was on the other end of this and my kid was coming home and saying, Stefan at school said this, and you're right. Yes, we would be in that office. We would be livid. We'd be advocating for our kid. We've had that conversation before. I'm thinking if I'm the parent of this student with EBD, then, and maybe I have burned through some resources in other districts and I'm at my wit's end, and it does not feel good to be pushed around, like in a sense, like now you're going to this system, now you're going to this system, that doesn't support the kid, but there is an element of you have to protect the rest of your school population. And when you have those clear lines, I get it. I guess I get it. It's just, it's not my favorite thing we've talked about because it doesn't feel good. That feels kind of gross to give up on a kid. I'm not a fan of retention. I'm not a fan of expulsion or suspension. Even though I don't know a whole ton about it, I'm a bigger fan of restorative practices and solving the issues where they happen, because that's the only way you create sustainable change. And that is not what's happening here or is being held up by the system. So,
and I think this highlights also the complexity of families who are navigating children with disabilities and the advocacy and potential feelings of loss that their kid doesn't fit into the system and the community that they live in.
Yeah, I feel really bad for the family. Just they didn't fail to disclose anything, and the student's behaviors were part of his disability. And then to be told you're out they should have appealed. They do have the right to appeal and do some further steps that they didn't do. But I don't know that it would have mattered. It's tough. But we always know that resources are just not abundant. And if you are going to take a child on choice, it could impact your ability to serve the ones that are already there or the one that's coming next week. And that's tough. And then also, I do see schools take kids on choice that I'm shocked about, and it's out of the kindness of their hearts. And it's pretty amazing, but also has risk.
Yeah. And I think that that's kind of my takeaway listening to this is for our districts and for parents, it's important to look at what your policies are and not waiting until there's been a mistake before you make one or tighten it. And how you're navigating those behavioral interventions within your disciplinary actions, because that really protected the district here, having the set guidelines of when we're using this space and when we're not. And he was making progress with that. Thanks for tuning into Spedsplaining. If you have questions or thoughts about today's episode, we would love to hear from you. Head over to our links in the show notes where you can drop your questions, join the conversations, and connect with us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode if you found it helpful. Until next time, keep learning.